welcome. I hope everyone is excited. For me, this is exciting because it's one of my favorite part of doing real estate. I love listings. I love working with sellers. I find it so much simpler. Now, when we say setting and managing expectations, I know most of you believe that it's for the client. Nah, it's us. It starts with us. If you want a successful transaction, it's all about where your head is. If you're going to go take a listing, it's very important in the first place to know the area that listing is in, to know what's entailed, especially because of COVID. In certain municipals, it's like pulling teeth in communicating with the municipal buildings, getting continued certificate of occupancy. If there's issues, oil tank issues, those are things you have to consider. How familiar are you about that area when you're putting together the marketing pieces to attract buyers? So that's the first thing you want to determine. Is this within your expertise? If you find that it's not, it's very important to refer it. That's not something some of you may want to hear, but it's the truth. You have to do what's right for that client. And if it's not something that, or an area that you service and you know very well, you definitely should refer it. You're not doing what's best for the client. And in marketing it, you're going to probably have buyers that will call you directly. How do you explain the local area? If they're commuters, the benefits of that area if you don't know it well enough. And of course, misinformation can also lead to litigation, which is what we need to stay away from. Okay, the other part, now you're meeting the client. I would, because we're in a technology age now, we can look pretty much anyone up. So I would do a little bit of research about the client to get a better idea of the client and kind of like to set the mood and break the ice when speaking to them. Knowing what's of interest for them helps a long way when you're speaking to them the first time. I know right now some of us are using Zoom, we're using Facebook, Meetup, Google Chat. If that is okay with your client, definitely I would try to get an idea of if they're able to navigate that platform, or what's most efficient for them. I've had clients that we needed to service that are not of the technology age, so that's a challenge for them. So it is necessary to meet them, but definitely follow the COVID protocols. Now, when we're sitting down with these clients or we're on our FaceTime, I love to use what I refer to is the ready, willing, and able. Ready, willing, and able to me means that when I'm speaking to the client, I want to know, especially now, what do they think of the present situation with COVID? I want to test how comfortable they are with the marketing of the home, with showing of the home. If they, again, are technology savvy, and they choose not to have people physically in their home, perhaps we could put together the different platforms that could expose the home and then kind of iron out with them if we have serious interest where they're putting an offer, then can we physically make appointments to see the home? Because of course, most of them would be somewhat anxious about having other people in their home. And there are some of them, the home is vacant, it doesn't matter. So that's to check where they're at right now with our present conditions that we're working within. Next, you want to find out from them where they really are with the realistic pricing of their home and the money or proceeds they're hoping to get at the end of the sale. And why? Because a lot of people, their home is their retirement. Their home is, some of them, it may be they're moving, downsizing, or they're moving to senior community perhaps. So you want to plan a strategy with them that incorporates what happens next and what about the proceeds. Share the CMA with them. We do the CMA, but in this market, it's somewhat challenging because we have right now a very low inventory. And that means we have a lot of buyers for a very small, I would say, small amount of homes that are either in certain areas priced accurately. So you would have multiple offers in that incident. So I would definitely, one of the reasons I'm sorry, I would say that that also occurs is a lot of these are not being reported right away or being put through the reported to the municipal. So for or appraisers, it's a challenge right now to get a fair appraisal on those homes. So when speaking about the pricing, I would definitely discuss that with them. And this is setting the expectations because you don't want unrealistic expectations that you are not going to be able to meet for these clients. And then willing, are they willing to cooperate, to be open-minded? Some people right now, and this is unfortunate, our country is kind of in a little bit of a turmoil in some aspects. So some people are very guarded. So that's one of the things you have to discuss. Unfortunately, we do, because we've had a situation where that came up after the fact. So I tend to find, and these things that I'm sharing with you today is from my experience. I tend to find that it's easier to speak and address it up front than being surprised and awkward later. So that's one of the things when we say willing, how open are they and how willing are they? Get an idea of where they stand or what things they're able to, or conditions they're able to accept or work with. And finally, ready. Ready meaning now, let's say the house, we get a really strong offer within the first month. Most of us don't think that it will, but in this market, there's a great chance that that happens. What if it's a cash offer? How ready are they to act on it? I've had situations where I had sellers that we priced the house very accurately and we got a full offer and they got cold feet and they told me, well, I think we should probably have priced it higher because the fact that we got a full offer and a cash offer in the first week and we didn't even have the open house yet, I think we maybe we priced it too low. So these are things that I have experienced that have been somewhat, I feel, crucial to making that deal happen and making the client feel comfortable. John, do we have
Yep.
any questions at the moment?
Yeah, so Mahmoud was asking, how do you deal with buyers that have unrealistic expectations for their price range?
Um, Mahmood, I know that our platform today was more for listings, but yes, I definitely can address that question. When you have a buyer that has unrealistic price range, it's for two reasons. When you first do that consultation, for me, I sit down with them and I have them write on a piece of paper the top three things that are important to them, meaning deal breakers. When we kind of iron that out and then we sit and we look at the price or let's say the amount of money they can truly afford to buy that home and the area they're looking in, you have to really be critical. I'll give you an example. For instance, let's say my price range, the maximum I can pay is 350, but I may want to buy a house and we know, let's say in Paramus, and I want 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bath. I want a lot that's 50 by 100. I may want a pool. Let me see. I may want a finished basement. It is very challenging to find that in that area. And it is important for you to show them what is truly on the market, meaning I would have them tour a couple houses, especially if you're finding that is a challenge, houses that meet the things that they wanted on that list and they can see the price. because I feel that if you're having that right now, it started with the consultation, getting crystal clear about what truly matters, not what they want, but what they really must have. And then we can negotiate around the things that they want.
Awesome. So it's kind of like you were just saying, even with the seller and the buyer, you really just need to manage all your expectations from the start by
Yes,
having a rock solid consultation.
definitely. And I wanted to add also in this section in preparing your clients, I most of the time when I meet, whether it's seller or buyer, I give them each, if it's a couple, if it's three people, if it's four people that need to make this decision, I give them a slip of paper and I ask them, please list five things and make sure the first three things, list them in matter of importance. What is most important? What is a deal breaker that you will not absolutely buy this house if it doesn't have XYZ? And then I take that piece of paper and I ask them to switch, give it to the other person. And I have that person read it out loud and clear to the rest of the group. If it's two, to each other, if it's more than that, to the group. What that does is it set clarity. Clarity is very important because I find sometimes little things that we overlook, that we don't think is important, that, let's say for instance, the wife might think that she needs a lot of storage in the kitchen because she's in the kitchen a lot. That's not something that she may really list, but when looking at the homes and putting the offer, she may be resistant to it because that is not there. And the husband may not know right off the bat that that's important to him. Having a huge garage to store his tools and a man shed is important, but is it worth compromising on for the functionality, for her to be able to feed the family, for her to be able to take care of the family, versus a huge car garage that he will be storing his tools in and having a man pad, which he could probably do in the basement. So for us, from in my experience, that's what we have been doing. Those are the things that I find successful in setting those expectations with the client. Because like I said in the beginning, it starts with us, and then we sit down and we go through that with them, what this looks like, um, and make it real. Because I find that a lot of times we have an expectation or in our head, or an idea in our head, until we flesh it out in reality. It sometimes is not as important as we think it is, or the things that we think are not important, like I give the example of the kitchen cabinets, it just may be, and it can make or break that deal, because she will be resistant when it comes to them signing or submitting that offer, or they may write an offer and decide they want to negotiate it later in the inspection because it didn't have these things, but they did not voice that to you. John, do we have any other questions on
I think
this?
that's it for this topic.
Okay, so moving on to our next topic, and that would be how to best communicate offers, how to best prepare our client, manage deadlines, and sorry, manage all dates and deadlines. John, I feel that, can you move back one, please?
Did I miss one?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
here.
sorry, I skipped one. Sorry.
Preparing your clients for accepting and negotiating offers. Okay. How for me, I find when we're speaking to our clients about negotiating the offers, we need to let first speak to them about what is an acceptable, first, even before that, what type of offers can possibly come in. By that I mean we can have offers, FHA offers. That means the first time homeowners, the government financing mortgages, or back mortgages. We can have FHA, we can have a cash offer. We can have offers with contingencies. We can have a seller, um, uh, seller, uh, seller, um, uh, uh, contingencies. I'm sorry, on the terms of that loan, a seller concession. We can have as well. So these are things you want to address with the seller. if you had an interesting party that gave a presentable offer or an acceptable offer, and there was a contingency in there, you need to explain to them what that contingency is, and that it may be good for them. They may determine that it is, or they may decide, well, you know what, I don't want a contingency there. That's not. I'm not comfortable with that. It's kind of not where we're at, because there may be issues with that they're not comfortable with, because there's certain people that believe a contingency means that they're getting less money. It's not true. They're not getting less money. That money is tacked on to the loan. The buyer is paying the full amount, but some sellers are not familiar with it, so they may turn down not a contingency, a concession. They may turn down an offer with a concession that could be a good offer. But for the most part, you need to go through what offers are possible that comes in. Next, you want to address with them, what if the offer comes from your office? What does that look like if it's not your buyer? Or it could be your buyer too. How does that work out? How would they like you to proceed with that? Secondly, multi offers. Would they like all offers to be presented? Are they open to the offers being submitted to you and you discuss it with them? Or would it be a highest and best situation? Also, in our office, we have a form that we use. It says seller acknowledgement. And we use that because in this market, there are very great chances that on listing that we will have multiple offers. So to anticipate that and to document that, so there's no issues later, and everyone's offer is heard, or the seller is aware of, so that the agent on the other side feels comfortable in knowing that their offer will be represented. We have a form called the seller acknowledgement, and in our listing package, that is a part of it, and we let them know what the function is and the purpose of it, so they're not surprised later when we submit an offer and we ask them, please just to sign off on the seller's acknowledgement, so that the agent is aware that yes, he acknowledged that, or she, that they received the offer, but they're not accepting the offer, or they're counter offering, or they have other offers that they're anticipating coming in, and they would like to wait. So that pretty much makes it fair. And in Keller Williams, we do believe in win-win. So that makes it a win-win for all parties involved. Remember, that agent today that is representing that buyer may be an agent that you would be submitting an offer to tomorrow. So let's be fair. John, is there any questions that we have at this moment?
Someone was wondering if you would be able to send them a copy of that seller acknowledgement.
Certainly, if you leave your information for us, I can definitely ask Janet to forward it, or Jacqueline, she is the head of our compliance department, and she can send that to you.
Yeah, so Kathleen, just leave your email and we'll send it to you.
Thank you.
We got, yeah, anybody who else
Perfect.
wants it, we'll save the chat.
Perfect. Okay, so we cover the offers, how to.
I have a
they asked-
question.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My question is regarding multiple offers. I know that once the offers, you get bank or pre-approvals. Do you find that checking out the pre-approvals and then submitting that information to clients helpful? Because I found that, sometimes pre-approvals are not as strong as some other pre-approvals. And then, I mean, how do you go about deciding you're just not deciding, but
Helping
getting
your client.
yeah, with the pre-approval portion, you wanting to present your client with the strongest offer, I'm assuming.
Okay, perfect. Are you speaking from the seller, right? Or are you speaking a buyer getting a pre-approval, or you're saying a seller getting an offer with a pre-approval?
Your sellers getting offers with pre-approvals.
Okay. What I've done, and this is in the best interest of time, because you don't want your seller to accept an offer that is shaky and then he takes his property off the market, because at that point it's our fault, right? So what I do is generally in that setting expectation, when we're speaking to that seller, I ask them, I share with them a situation like this, and I ask them if they're open. We can definitely have a mortgage company that we're familiar with, uh, take that information and then just check it to make sure that it is a valid pre-approval, and then we can accept it. I've had that done before, or someone that they know of that is a mortgage rep, that they can have check the validity of that pre-approval. You can do that, and you can definitely reach out to the agent on the other side and tell them, this is one of my seller's terms in accepting your offer. It doesn't mean that they're running the credit, but they're validating the
Pre-approval.
the pre-approval to make sure that it's a strong pre-approval. And they can say yes or no, but in this market that we're in, I would definitely do it, simply because the opportunities, if that buyer would say no, they don't want that to happen, the seller definitely, especially if it's priced rightly, will have another offer in no time. Does that help you?
Yep.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Are there
Any
any more
questions?
questions? Nope. Okay, so I'll save the
Okay.
chat afterwards and make sure that everyone who did post their email will get a copy of the seller acknowledgement. Our compliance broker basically said that it's an NJR form, but we will send it to you. So just feel free to leave it in the chat. If you have any more questions, leave it in the chat as well.
Okay, also, okay, when we're speaking about offers, remember there can be written and verbal offers. Speak to your seller about this as well, because as a broker, I know that all offers must be acknowledged in the method in which they were received. So if you have a verbal offer, if you tell them when you're sitting down doing the expectation, that verbal offers simply mean that some other agent spoke to their client said they're interested, and they would tell you like some number. Let's say the house is priced at 350. They'll say, my client would really is really interested, and we would like to let you know we have a verbal offer, and the offer is 345. And our response to that agent, of course, is I will bring it to the attention of my seller, but until we have a written offer, we will not acknowledge the offer, or I don't mean acknowledge, but in the essence that we are not going to take it as a serious offer. So we will continue marketing the property. As soon as you can get us a written offer, it would be in the best interest of your client, in tying up the property or getting us to the table where we can have an actual contract. Um, in addition to that, when we are speaking, one of the things you definitely want to address with them is, when we have a successful offer, how do they want you to proceed with marketing the home? Do they want you to take the property off the market? Do they want you to continue showing them property? If it's not an offer that is an offer that they were hoping was strong enough, I would surely advise them to keep marketing the property, and they have the opportunity during attorney review to probably get a better offer. On the other hand, if you're representing a buyer, and if you've given a strong offer, I would make that a part of the terms in the contract, additional provisions that I would request that until we're out of attorney review, especially in this market, that all other offers to be considered as backup offers. And that's to give your client the ability to get out of attorney review and not have to worry or be pressured by overbidding, the possibility of overbidding on a property, especially when we know for most buyers it's emotional.
Maureen, I have a question for you.
Yes,
You mean like if it's an attorney review, continue to show. Is that what you're trying to say?
yes, exactly.
Okay, once it goes under contract, obviously you can't show, correct?
No, once it goes on the contract, you cannot continue to show, but there can still be offers that would come in. If there are offers that come in and we're out of attorney review, I would forward that offer to the attorney, and I would call my client or email my client and let them know that an offer came in, but because they have legal representation, I can no longer submit the offers directly to them, and I must submit it to the attorney. And we can always schedule a time that once the attorney has shared it with them, we can go over it if they have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
No
Maureen,
problem.
can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
There actually is under contract continue to show. They
Yes.
can do that, and that's what the seller will have to sign, like you're talking about listings, when he lists the
Yes.
property. But
Yes.
the offers would be backup offers, but
Yes.
after attorney review, you can show under contract only if the seller gives you permission, and then it's under contract, continue to
Yes.
show with offers as backups.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Jackie.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if it's under contract, you can, if you're saying that as the buyer's agent, you can have it written in the contract that once it goes under contract, you can no longer show regardless, not regardless, but as a counter to an under contract continue to show.
I would put it in the additional provisions on the last page. I would write in there, should the offer be accepted, and we go to attorney review, can all offers be considered as backup offers until attorney review have concluded? And the simple reason for that is because, and I would do it if my offer is strong, like it's a full price, I have a strong pre-approval and we have good terms on the down payment, I would definitely do it. I wouldn't do it if the asking price is 350 and my client is offering 325, 335, even 345, and we're looking at a big difference. I don't believe the seller would be open to it, but you can ask. But from my experience, I've done that when I feel that he has gotten what he asked for and the terms are all fair to everyone, then what would be the point of entertaining other offers? It would put my client at this position because a disadvantage, sorry, it would put my client as a disadvantage because all that's going to happen is a bidding war. And or buyers generally are emotional when they're buying something. Now it's up to the seller to accept it. Make sense? I hope that helped you, Lisa.
It
was
does,
one more-
thank you.
There was one more question from Jason. How would you know if a down payment is strong in representing the seller?
Okay, how would I know a down payment is strong in representing a seller? For me, based on my judgment, FHA is a 3% down payment. I would say a healthy down payment is anywhere about 20% down, 25% down. I would deem that a strong offer.
Maureen, let me ask you a question. Like all lenders are like, even when you call up like a lender, say we're working with like a mutual client and they are putting 15% or 20% down, they're all gonna like majority of the time, wouldn't they all tell you like, all right, they're pre-qualified, they have good job and all that, and then towards like the end of the day, something happens and they don't get like the loan? Have you ever had that experience?
Yes, I have, but when you say pre-qualified is not pre-approved.
No, pre-approved, I mean.
Okay, you want definitely a pre-approved. When I'm working with, again, my seller, I have vendors, I consult with them very well to let them know when we're getting an offer, it is okay if they're not comfortable with the offer. We can always get a second opinion on the qualifications of that pre-approval, right? That's the first part. The second part of that is if my seller really needs to sell, and they are worried about time and the qualifications, certain offers may not be the best for them. If they're an FHA offer with certain terms that my seller is not in a situation to be able to handle, because when you find that the offer isn't strong or it would not work out, generally it's somewhere within the mortgage terms. And in most cases, I know you say with 15 or 20% down, that it would fall apart. The only reason that it would fall apart, it would be either in the inspection, which we didn't get to yet, or in the appraisal of the property. Now, you as the agent need to do your homework, and that is the reason why I started out in the beginning stating setting expectations and getting real is starts with us, because I know a lot of agents that take listings in areas that they aren't even familiar with. Like I live in Clifton. I would not take a listing, let me see, in South Jersey. I can find the data in the MLS, but does it really mean I know that area in pricing that home? Because certain areas have little communities, little pockets that you go 2 blocks, the price is totally different. You need to be able to price that home correctly when you do that CMA, because a lot rides on it. That's where it most likely will fall apart, in the inspection or the appraisal. And when you're pricing that home, that's a conversation you have with the seller when we're talking about accepting offers. If we know we priced the home not at the fair market price, but a little above, and we happen to get an offer that matches it, you need to make the seller aware that there's a chance the appraisal will come back and it may not be in our favor. Are you open to possibly or entertaining the idea that we may have to reduce the price of the home? Does that help you?
Yes.
Any,
There's
do we
one
have any
more
other
question.
questions now?
Yeah. So would you consider cash offers and conventional offers stronger in a time-based seller representation?
Definitely, I would, but even with cash offers, you want to see proof of funds. You need to see proof of funds, and not a letter that came from somewhere that was typed up. You need to see proof of funds. They can block out the personal information, but you want to see that sheet from the bank that shows the proof of funds. Because I've had situations where we have cash offers that later we found out weren't actual. Also, I've also experienced situations where we have offers where we get above asking, and in the inspection, the client plan was to kind of reduce the price to where they felt it should be in the inspection negotiations. So be prepared for that. Share that with that seller. I share that with the seller because that has been my experience, and I need to have a very strong game plan when it comes to handling the issues that may arise, because I don't want my seller to be nervous or overwhelmed when something like that happens. If we can discuss it, they know that I am aware of it and that I will be able to handle it with them with good communication. Okay. One of the things I wanted to also discuss with you is, it says go over important calendar dates. When I say this, it will lead me into where we just addressed very lightly inspections. So what I generally do with our sellers is I would go over with them what the transaction will look like. Okay, so we have attorney review. Then we have, after attorney review, we have inspection. Actually, even before that, we have the second deposit. That's due after attorney review concludes. We also need to share with our sellers, do they have an attorney? If they don't, I would give recommendations, and I'll highly advise them to call these people, get familiar with them, and choose one that they are comfortable with. Just because I recommend it doesn't mean they need to use that person. If they recommend one and tell me I have one, I'll say, great, do you mind if I reach out to that attorney and speak to them, because I want to introduce myself to them and let them know who I am, and so that we can get on the same page once the transaction becomes live. When we have a live offer and we're going into attorney review, it is very good that he knows, or we're familiar with the way we are going to work. And that also helps, because sometimes attorneys, depending on the type of attorney they hire, it can make or break your deal. I've had clients that hired a divorce attorney, and this is not a joke. And that attorney was like, he was feel the way he communicated with the other parties. It seems that it was not, we're looking to win together. It seems that he is looking for problems or faults, to see why this is not going to work, why this is going to fail, instead of being on the side of let's communicate and try to make it a successful endeavor. So definitely I speak to them about that attorney. Second deposit is due. Then I speak to them about inspection. I tell them the things that I believe will happen in an inspection. One of the things I advise them, especially in this market with COVID, to get an inspection done. Why do we want an inspection done? Because if there's any issues, I want them prepared to address them. If there's termite issues, we want that addressed, and maybe they can get it taken care of before we get to that point in the transaction. This is when we're listing the home, because we know that it will take a while for a company to come out there and take care of it. One of the other things I address with them is continued occupancy of that home. What does the timeline look like in their municipal? Should there be an oil tank issue? If there is one, one of the things that I want to share with you, that I also share with our clients in the beginning, is that seller disclosure. Most of you, there's some, for us, I believe there are most real estate companies that do use the seller's disclosure. There are a few that don't, but it is in the best interest of everyone. Why? For us, the agent, it helps us with any issues of misinformation, any opportunity for them to say that maybe we gave them information that was not accurate. The seller on their end, if they don't know, they don't know. They're not aware. They complete it to the best of their knowledge. But how does that help us moving forward with the issues that are at hand? Because if there is an oil tank and they have an oil tank, I would highly advise them, let's just get the oil tank checked out. Yes, it seems that it would be too much, but if your seller is serious in selling this home, no matter what happens, there will be an oil tank sweep. There will be a soil test if necessary. The more prepared we are for that, the smoother the transaction is. It doesn't become emotional. It doesn't become where the seller feel like, oh my gosh, it's so much money, I'm not going to do that, because in the end of the day, they still have to address it. It's environmental. So you want to walk them through that. You also want to let them know the new buyer that's buying your home, they haven't lived in here. They don't know all the quirks about it. So some of them are anxious, and little things that could be fixed may make them concerned. So one of the things I also introduced to my seller is, maybe you may be open to getting a homeowner's warranty, because what does that do? It helps the buyer on the other end feel a little bit more assured that should something happen, they have the warranty there. Of course, there's a deductible, but at worst, at the minimum, they have some sense of a guarantee to some degree, that they have a plan or some kind of security if something should go wrong. Any questions, John, so far?
Nope, I think that's it for this topic.
Okay, so when I go over the inspection, the deposit, the appraisal, the certificate of occupants, continued occupancy, I date these on my calendar. When we date them on the calendar, it's important to send an invitation to your client, because now it's a date that one reminds you, and you can follow up with them in addressing where we're at, how we're going to proceed, because all of this, when you speak to them in the beginning, they won't remember half of it a week later, 2 weeks later. But it's good that those calendar dates are there because they're constant reminder and they're good communication. So they always feel that they're a part of this transaction, they're part of the deal, and they're not surprised, or they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't remember that, how come you didn't remind me, kind of thing. Okay, moving on to the next, managing all dates and deadlines. There we go, managing all dates and deadlines. Those again are those critical dates that we just discussed, inspection, appraisals. One of the other things that I actually remember that I didn't share earlier on is one of the issues that we've had also besides the oil tank is if it's a multifamily, what do you do? Remember, we're in COVID. Our governor has given the ruling that we cannot evict any tenant. So if it's a multifamily, if the seller lives in one of the unit, that is great for you because we know the seller will be moving. But if it's tenant occupied, that would be a challenge because the tenants we can't just evict them. So one of the things you'll have to consider with that seller is, can we make it a win-win in the sense of assisting that tenant financially in having them move somewhere, if that is possible, and you can address that upfront when the house when we get that offer and we get to the commitment, when the commitment is received, I would say somewhere about after the appraisal, and we get the appraisal under, we would then speak to the seller again and then remind him of our conversation, and then see if we can reach out to that tenant and start working on possibly assisting that tenant to relocate. We may be able to assist them financially, or we may be able to find some place that they can move to. Okay. John, any other questions? That's pretty much all I have for managing all those dates and deadlines.
All right.
So we're now at preparing them to move, or preparing them for that move. If in the beginning when you spoke to them about moving, I generally do, because depending on if they're moving out of state, if they're staying locally, one of the things when you're staging that home, it helps them if you have I think there are these cubes that they kind of bring them by your property and you can fill them with items, and then it can stay there until they need to move them somewhere, or sometimes they can store them for them. If they're not moving out of state, storing them may be good, and then later move it to wherever they're going to be relocating to. But I definitely go through that, find out where they're relocating to. Do they need assistance with that, with the logistics of that? Maybe it's a good thing for us because they may be buying in our area. So now this just became a double bubble for us. Going down, we have a checklist that we share with our sellers to help prepare them, to remind them about the mail, about getting the meters read, because they'll also need that for closing documents with their attorney. So these are the things that we generally go over with them and schedule. I would start preparing and going over the move again right after we are done with the appraisal. Like I shared with you, I'd speak to the tenant at that time. That's at the time that I would be speaking to my seller about fleshing out all the details about their moving. One of the things, because we're in COVID, that we discuss upfront, but I will remind them at this point is getting that property clean, getting it cleaned by a professional company. And that is even more a great selling point for those buyers when they're coming to coming and putting an offer, some peace of mind. I know I didn't share this up front. When you're speaking to that seller, definitely go over the COVID protocol. Definitely let them know what your plan is. for us, our plan definitely is if the client is open to having people in their home, to have their jewelry put away, to have the home a couple windows open. The sign is at the door that tells everyone you're welcome, but these are the conditions. You must wear your mask. Here are the gloves. Here's the sanitizer. We're only allowing, prior to this, it was one person, but I believe we can do a couple if it's a couple, because now the governor has changed how many people and can be in a space, and indoor dining, but no one is allowed to leave your presence. You will be the tour guide, therefore you're locking the doors. Of course, we did that not when it's COVID, but even more so now. And they must register because it's important for your client to also know who was in the home. So do we have any other questions, John?
Nope.
Uh, I pretty much reach our conclusion, and this is quicker than I thought it would be, in anticipating what we needed to touch on. All of these can be more detailed, but these are pretty much the highlights of what we go over when we're speaking to our sellers. And because this is Listing Mania, I can address how we work with buyers if everyone is open to that. I just addressed these top ones because it's like I shared Listing Mania. Is anyone, are you guys open to discussing buyers, how we work with buyers in given preparing them for the transactions in COVID?
Yeah, you guys want to learn about buyers?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Sounds. Also, just a heads up, Jackie Fortino just wanted to let you guys know that she sent the email out for the owner's acknowledgement form. So thank you, Jackie.
Now, when we're dealing with buyers, getting a buyer ready, willing, and able is a little bit more challenging than a seller, because a seller just know I need my house sold. I need it marketed as much as possible. And some of them may tell you where they want it marketed. And they want to know, they want to be assured that their property will be in good hands. And at the end of the day, that you will be there if they need you. With buyers, it's a little bit different, because with buyers, we're now touring homes, we're now seeing homes. And in this market, it's very aggressive, very competitive. The better prepared your buyers are for this market, the better of opportunity for them to be successful. What do I mean by that? Let them know, first, we need to put your offer in the strongest position. So let's walk through this. Did you get pre-approved? If the answer is no, here are 3 vendors. Please reach out to them. I would reach out to those vendors. And before I do that, also, I would ask them, is it okay if I share your information with these vendors and expect a call from them? Once we've done that, I will let them know. If they have their own pre-approval and they came to me with one, I'll say, can we schedule a date to speak to your vendor? Because we're a team and we need to put together a game plan now. And I would speak to that vendor, and I would find out from that mortgage rep, what does this pre-approval really look like? And then I would play out the scenarios based on what this client is telling me they want, that we need to be prepared for. We may need to put multiple offers on different properties. We may need to, in some cases, they may be writing an offer and then later seeing the property after. It may be an advantage because while everybody else needs to schedule an appointment, we can write the offer. It can be a strong offer, but definitely put in the offer that we submit that this is contingent upon them seeing it. I would schedule the inspection at the same time that they go to see it, because the less exposure our clients need to have, the greater it is given the sensitivity of COVID right now. Sitting down with them and fleshing out definitely that two pieces of paper, guys, believe me, it makes the world of a difference. You don't have to anticipate, I'm going to drive these people around for another 3 months, because it can be 3 months, because right now there's a limited amount of inventory. The clearer you get on what they need, not what they want, what they absolutely need, the better you can write that offer, the better the chances of them getting to their goal of finding a home. Um, I always go over with them. Again, inspection. What does an inspection look like? Don't get scared. Don't get worried. Yes, in the terms of your offer and your contract, it says if the seller does not uh, isn't open to addressing these issues, they can definitely cancel the contract. Now, where do we live? The Garden State. Guess what's in the Garden State? What's in the garden? A lot of bugs. Guess what? They're termites. I very rarely come across a house that never ever had a termite issue. It can be addressed. Don't be too concerned. It's not going to affect your ability to have a whole home, a complete home. It's not going to. Um, I tell them about, of course, oil tanks. I tell them, of course, about how it could be remediated, that there are options for us to do so. When we're offering, let them know it's not we're going to offer or we're putting an offer but in the hopes of negotiating it back down later, because a lot of them will tell you, I have family members that did this and they did that, and that is great, but do you want to move into this home by this deadline, or do you want to lose it for a couple of dollars for something that could be uh, addressed, could turn out to be a win-win for everyone. I've had situations, and to share, I believe one of our guests on the presentation today shared with us that what do you do with unreasonable buyers that are, I guess, would be priced out the market. Definitely when going over the pricing of homes and what is realistic, let them know that when they're writing this offer, we're looking at the home not from the perspective of the people that are living in it. Because a lot of times when buyers look at homes, they look at it, oh, well, the layout is this way, oh, it's over cluttered, oh, but it's not bright enough. There are a lot of things that can be done cosmetically to a home that will make it their home. You have to be kind of like the visualizing person for them. You have to create that image for them when you're walking in that home, because a lot of them don't see what the possibilities are. They just see what is physically there based on the people that inhabit the home. John, do we have any questions now?
We have a lot of questions. Any advice to make a buyer's offer more attractive if they only have 5% as a down payment?
Yes, they can have timelines. They can, if it's 5% down, if they're handy, there's certain things that they may be able to do themselves on their, that they could probably overlook, that if it's not an inspection issue I'm speaking of, but definitely they can have timelines. Timelines is one of the greatest things. And what do I mean by that? Their flexibility in the timeline. Maybe the seller, and one of the things I would say, if you're the buyer, I would try to speak to that agent and find out where the seller is. How soon do they have to relocate or move? Because that will give you an opportunity where the timeline are concerned with the home. With only 5% down, I believe one of the best options that they can also have is probably look more in the sense of if they can possibly get a multifamily. And I say multifamily because that helps them in the possibility of qualifying and also having more of a home, a bigger home for that amount, because they would consider the second unit income. Does that help any?
Yeah.
I know that's not something that you asked. You asked how to make it a more attractive offer, but you're also looking at the opportunity to get your client in a home. So that may be something too that may be in their ballpark because maybe they're looking at just single homes right now, single dwellings.
So in a way, like you might not be able to make the offer more attractive, but you might be able to give them a better chance to get their offer accepted.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. And not a better, just so much a better chance to get their offer accepted, but give them more options. Because
Opportunities. Got it.
yes, because with 5% down, they're really limited to what the market is giving right now. Because remember, you're competing with a lot of other people that are looking at that home because we have low inventory. So a person, let's say we have 100 people looking at single families, and your client is one of them with a 5% down. But now we move to a multifamily situation. You may have less people looking at a multifamily. Let's say you have now maybe 75 or 60 people looking at a multifamily unit. Your buyer may have more of an opportunity there.
Yeah. Someone else asked, how do you win in a multiple offer situation when your buyer does not want to go up in their offer?
That's a toughie. That's a toughie because, well, let me say this. When you're saying your buyer don't want to go up in an offer, you need to break down to them how important is this home, how many of the things that they wanted in this home does it meet, and take the difference. Let's say it's a difference of $5,000 if they have to go up. Break that down over 30 years. It may come out to nothing. Are they willing to lose the home for that in this market when it's very challenging to find a home that will match the things that they want? So I think it's not so much they don't want to, if they don't understand what it looks like in increasing that price. Overall, they may be more open to saying yes, I'm willing to do that. But when they're just looking at it from the perspective, I'm increasing it more and it's not where I want to be, you have to go over the wants and needs analysis from them. It's and have them physically see themselves there, and then let them see realistically how many other homes are on the market right now that they can afford. And what does that 5%, what does that increase mean over the 30 years of that mortgage?
Awesome.
Next question.
How do you break down the chance as a listing agent to the seller so that I could be a dual agent?
How do you break down the chance to the seller? Jason? I'm not sure what he means by chance.
So I think what he's asking is, say he,
Well, I can say it, sorry.
Sure.
Thanks. So what I was saying is, all right, so the seller knows I'm the listing agent. Now, how would I break it down to him to say that, there could be a buyer that, calls me directly and wants to put in the offer with me? Like, how could I break down that he's going to trust me, or how would I make him feel comfortable enough to explain that?
Okay. In your package, in your listing package, in that it already states that should the opportunity arise that you may become a dual agent. But when you're saying this to him, remember, one of the values that you brought to him was getting what? What does he want? He wants a buyer, right? The reason he listed with you is to get a buyer.
Right.
So isn't that part of your job to get a buyer?
Yes. Okay. That's
okay. Yes, that's what he's really paying you for, to find a buyer, a qualified buyer with an offer that's acceptable to him. What you need to explain to him is dual disclosure. What does that look like? Now, there are many, there are people on the fence about this. There are people for it. There are people against it. I believe that if you're disclosing to everyone and you're being fair and honest with everyone, there shouldn't be an issue. And here is why. When you're speaking to the seller, you let him understand in a dual disclose situation, what it simply means is that everything except the motivation of and whatever you deem not necessary or you don't want disclosed, I don't have the liberty to disclose. Everything that is given to me, that is presented to you, or that is been shared with me, I must share with you, except again for your motivation and certain things that he may deem not necessary to share or he may want to keep private, right? in that aspect, it would be, let's say he says, I'm willing to take as low as 325, but I priced it at 350. That is something that you would discuss, and you would say, as far as this, if we get to an offer and the offer is at this position, what do you want me to share, or what do you not want me to share with that possible buyer? And also, you need to let him understand that buyer doesn't necessarily just mean it's your buyer. When he lists with that brokerage, that listing, the relationship between him and you starts with your broker. The contract, the agreement is really with the broker, not with so much you. And in that brokerage, there are other buyers, that other agents that may have buyers. Does he want to eliminate the possibility of having them bring an offer, including yourself?
Because that would be a dual disclosed agent as well.
Yes.
If your office brought it.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So one, you need to explain the dual agency to him. Go over that. If you have a broker, speak to your broker, or speak, if you have a director of compliance, you speak to them and have them walk you through it, because it's very delicate, a dual agency. And you have to understand, when you speak to the client, or you speak, even if you need their assistant, it would be good for them to explain that as well, should that opportunity arise, what it's going to look like, what will be shared, what won't be shared, and that really it can be a very successful opportunity and a great one for him, because the reason he hired a brokerage is to give himself every opportunity possible to get a qualified buyer.
Okay, thank you so much.
Awesome.
No
So I
problem.
think that's pretty much it for the time we have today. Thank you everyone for coming to Listing Mania. Everyone should have gotten the copy of the seller's disclosure and stuff. So I mean the owner's acknowledgement. Let's just give Maureen a little round of applause. Thank you, Maureen, for all the information.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, everyone. And the time went pretty fast.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maureen. That was very helpful.
Manana.
All right. Thank you so much,
Make it a good
everybody.
day, everyone.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you.
Great
Bye.
section.
Have a
Have
great
a
day.
good
Take care,
day.
everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
John. Take care.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye.
Thank you, Maureen. Excellent session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.